We are live. We're live. This is our roundtable. We're going to be talking about what our projects are, what we've been up to since our last one, which for us has been since last week. And who would like to start? What have you been up to? What is your project?
I guess I can start. Since Jubilee politely started the whole meeting for us. Yeah, so since last week, I have not accomplished anything. Okay, who's next? No, I mean I have. I created the actual website for goaliebot.com, which is a personality that will represent my project reason score. Since people had trouble understanding whose opinion the system was showing. And since it's showing everyone's opinion and no one really understands that, I thought it'd be best to have a character. Now people are thinking that it's an AI, and it's not. But we'll figure that out. And then I've been arguing with some people in the Canonical Debate Lab about how to structure debates and stuff like that. So that's how I've spent most of my time, and it wasn't very productive communication, which is funny. You got a group of people that are working on making communication much more productive, and we're all kind of, we're doing an okay job. It's hard. Naming things is hard. And so next week I'm going to try and create some blog posts and try and create some content for GoalieBot and see if I can get some people engaged in a conversation on Twitter. So we'll see.
I forgot to mention in the beginning part, because everyone already knows, but if you have an ask as well, something you would like.
Yeah, I don't have any ask. I can always come up with one if no one else is going to take the hot seat, but I think hopefully Carrie will be on the hot seat today, so we'll see.
I guess I can go while I'm unmuted. My project is solution raising and process raising, working on coming up with ideas that 10,000 people can do with $100,000 that are powerful for them. And then a process, what could we actually do to work through a process with 10,000 people? So we met for our education solution raising on Wednesday. Carrie was actually there, and Eric, and I broke it a little bit and was like, let's stopped it halfway through this last part and actually was like, how do I actually do this? How do I actually create an education system for my kid next year, because we're in a different world than we used to be? And so that's what's going to be happening next Saturday, hopefully, is looking at creating a Zoom idea cafe meets solution raising. It's still percolating, but I plan on having it figured out by the end of today. And I met with Raymond to do process raising. We came up with a vision and a mission that we're working through. And that is what. And next week, I don't know what we're going to do our solution raising on yet. Part of me wants to do it on slavery after June 19th. And I kind of committed to, we'll watch on the 13th, doing one on addiction, one on slavery, and one on, I don't remember what else. Poverty. And so that is, I don't really have a question unless someone knows where I get 10,000 people from. That's what I would like. Someone give me 10,000 people by the end of this hour. But that is my update, what I'm up to next week.
Adriel, you go first, because I'll talk the legs off donkeys.
All right, sounds good. So over the last week, I didn't really do much myself, I guess, but Matoush has been working on the prototype for, actually, I guess it's not really the prototype, the early pre-alpha, I guess you'd call it, for Wiki Election. He sent that over, and I did some review. I still have to do some of the testing for like actually adding and editing records, but it's doing good. And then he and I had a decent chat after yesterday's meeting, going into a bit more depth. So I have a bit of work to do there this weekend to move that forward, but that's moving along nicely.
And you have something later today that I saw, and no?
Yeah, I've got the Wiki Election live stream on politics in 3 hours.
Sure, it's not science. It said science.
Oh, it is science? Okay.
It said science.
Okay, they had it science.
All right, okay. And then, Carrie, if you want to talk a legs off a donkey, you can go for it. We'll have the same.
Okay, well, where do I start? For the last week, I've been watching everybody finding synchronicities and ways of collaborating and helping and being of use. And even though kind of my own project has been on the back burner just for now while COVID-19, because what I was doing, I was wanting to create an organisation called The Third Place, and it's basically I wanted a craft pub, because like there's nowhere to go if you don't want to be drinking, and especially in Scotland, there's huge drinking culture. But myself, there's nowhere, like all the community centres, they all shut at 5. So the idea was to have this craft pub, and it'd be like a mashup between an art department and a wonky tea shop, with the opening hours and atmosphere of a pub, so people could just drop in, have a cup of tea, learn how to do stuff. But that's way in the future. And I started off with a free room, because we're talking to people like the idea. Obviously you don't have enough money to buy a pub to do one up, so basically a church give us a free room to sort of like start hosting meetings, and that's how I started an arts and crafts drop in, where anyone can come in. It doesn't matter if you don't even want to do arts and crafts, you can just come for a cup of tea. So the first week we had one, 18 people came. The second week 9 people came, and after that COVID-19, and then we got cancelled. And also I was thinking about doing a website, and I'm with Green Geeks, and during the chat yesterday about helping with a CRM system, I decided to bite the bullet and go back and fix things. So I've bought a domain name for The Third Place now. I'm going to install Drupal, install the CRM on that. So once you're ready, Adriel, you can come and have a look, and I can just come and show you with the one I've got, and then you can see, rather than try and install one that's no use. I thought, well, I don't know that word, reorientate myself with it, because I haven't looked at it for years, but I know it, so yeah. So as I said, I'm coming up with loads of ideas. I realise now through Game B, there's a huge chasm between the thinkers and the doers, and a lot of I probably come from the land of doing, but nobody gets what I'm on about. And as I said, there's a huge bridge that leads chasm, and I realised today that I've got no fixed ideology, I've got no fixed belief system, but I love looking at things and I love looking at ideas. So in the Game B projects, I'd like to do a one-to-one with all the members in the Game B projects to find out more about what your projects are, and maybe do a research project on what collaboration tools people are using, and see if there's maybe possibilities that in the future and building something or getting something that, because what I find about collaboration tools is if you're starting off on an idea and you've got no money, and the tools are out there, they'll make you pay for certain things, and as soon as you get somebody to come and play out with you, they charge you more and more and more. Well, these people who come and play out with you, they might not stay, so you'd end up paying for them as well. So it just, there's loads of barriers to it anyway. So if there's a way we can find that maybe gets rid of the barriers, and that we can all have collaboration tools that we can actually use, that's not going to cost us the earth, and maybe have a suite of them rather than just paying each month for different ones, I think that would be good. But I need a one-to-one conversation to find out your project, to find what you're doing, to find out what collaboration tools. And I'm seeing synchronicities in between lots of different people, and I like looking at things. And we can get a research project of what's out there, what we can do to improve, to turn with the Game B philosophies and that, and I think that would be great. And I think I've talked the legs off multiple donkeys now, don't you think?
It works. I just want to mention to anyone watching at the moment, if they wanted to come on and be on camera and join the roundtable, that is more than welcome. You can come and tell us what your project is and what your update is. This happens every Saturday at this same time. And would you like help with something, Carrie? Would you like to be in the hot seat? What would you?
Help, right? Oh God, I wouldn't even know where to start to ask for help. I think just conversations, or people message me. I think that'll be a start, because I know I'm quite, maybe some people see me as a bit dodgy, so a bit intimidating. But they can message me and say hello and tell me what they're all about and what they're up to, and if there's things that I might like to look at. I think that's about it for now. But oh yeah, help, right? developers who've got Drupal experience. And it's not that I'm going to bother you to death. I know how to install it. It's just I need somebody to kind of talk to in case I go wrong somewhere, and that's all. But yeah, Drupal. Anybody who's got Drupal experience and the content management system platform, I think that's really good. For now. Hey, Yesenia! Help, right? Developers who've got Drupal experience. And it's not that I'm going to bother you to death. I know how to install it. It's just I need somebody to kind of. That's better. There's nothing worse than hearing yourself back when you haven't finished talking. Hello, Yesenia. How you doing? I'm going to shut up now.
Welcome, Yo. Would you like to give an update on what you've been up to in your project and if you need help with anything? Did we mute you? Or did you? You muted yourself, so you'd have to unmute yourself.
Hi.
Hello, Yesenia. How you doing?
Good. There was just tons of echo where I was hearing
I'm going
Carrie
to shut up now.
speak.
Welcome.
I'm
Yo.
still hearing
Would you
her.
like to give an update on what you've been up to in your
Do
project?
you have Facebook open up in another tab, Yesarian? You need to close that.
Okay, all better. There was just a huge gap in time. Thanks, Bentley. Well, I was just listening along. I have like some ideas of what I'm trying to accomplish. I've been writing a lot. I've spoken with both Carrie and Jubilee on separate occasions, kind of to understand, what you guys were up to, as well as what I'm trying to accomplish, which is still a little vague, although I have these big insights that pop up on occasion. So last night I got really inspired after listening to another Daniel Schmachtenberger talk. And so last night's idea was kind of a science fiction novel that describes like how we evolve into the next level of thinking that allows us to get past the struggles that we're dealing with. I'm not sure that science fiction or even fiction is necessarily a great model to help the world understand how to get to the next level. I'm also trying to just understand that myself. So I've found some things that I think are really key elements to how we should be viewing the world as a collection of systems where there are, better and worse. I think using Ken Wilber's kind of terminologies around these different developmental stages, the world is made up of a bunch of people. We all have different worldviews. The political divide and the polarization that's occurring is because we have these different worldviews and ideals that we hold dear to ourselves. The predominant one, I'm a leftist liberal person, but currently there's some problems with that worldview, which kind of, equates everyone as being absolutely equal. No ifs, ands, or buts. Yet there's an irony or a conflict in there, which is that, well, clearly people that are racist aren't equal. And I agree with that. Like, no, they have a lower worldview. But it's that next stage of development where we become aware of systems, worldviews, be able to honor what's right about them, and then also be able to say, well, and this is where the upper limit is. And so that upper limit for a, leftist worldview is where it's like, yes, we're all equal. That doesn't mean that we're all born equal, and we should all be treated equally in terms of respect and dignity. Although different ideas, need to be rethought in terms of, how we can work together coherently, because not everyone's the same level of intelligence, for example. So it's kind of controversial. There's a lot of pushback in the political world right now about these subjects. So it takes a certain amount of courage and bravery to go into them with enough detail so that you're not call to races because you're saying, well, you've got some limits there to your worldview. But so anyway, I'm trying to find out ways to, write about this that's really coherent and kind of lifts the dialogue out of our current paradigm. But I also find it just really interesting what other people are doing and getting inspiration from that. And then if I can help people do that work, that's great too. I've been a CEO of a company before and raised lots of money, and so there's a lot of experience in my world that could help on a collaborative level with something that I felt really attracted to. But I also don't want to take so much time out of my life that I can't continue my efforts to become a writer. So that's it.
So I have a couple things to say on that.
Sure.
First of all, I think science fiction is probably the most effective way, or at least storytelling in general is really the most effective way to change minds. If you just look at the impact of Star Trek and a lot of the other kind of worlds that really tackled a lot of the things we're still working on today. Back in the 60s, they had an episode on racism. So I think that's a great way around it. I've actually thought of sharing some of my concepts through storytelling, doing a mystery novel where they use my technology to solve the mystery. So I think so. I encourage you. I think that's a good path to go. And then some of the other things you suggested, I think some of your wording, it'd be interesting at some time to explore some of the phrases and wording that you use, because I think that some people would that you're using some words that are a little vague, and a potential interpretation could be not what you're intending. So
yes,
which is always hard. I mean, that the hardest, you probably know, the hardest thing is trying to explain your ideas in the way that it gets in the other person's brain, right? Since you've been doing fundraising, which is a lot of that.
Yep.
And then the other thing is that, if you've been a CEO and been fundraising, it might be interesting for me my project doesn't have a good funding model.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with potentially either keeping it as a small project or a nonprofit in the future if I think I can prove out the idea. But it might be interesting to just have you kind of review it and see whether you think there's a funding model. I mean, there's several potential ones, but none of them are likely that I've seen. And just it'd be interesting to get an additional opinion.
Sure. Yeah, I had when you guys had some meeting with at least, I think, you, Bentley, maybe not Adriel, but the other three folk, Carrie, Jubilee, Bentley, yesterday for like 2 minutes, and I just kind of barely heard something and suddenly found something more interesting to focus on, so I left. And then this morning I opened this window, but then went and brushed my teeth, so I kind of missed what you were actually talking about. And then when I came back from brushing my teeth, someone was like, if you're watching, you should just pop in. I'm like, what the hell? I'll pop in. So I'm totally new to whatever anybody's ideas. I've heard Jubilee's idea, I think, and, part of me was like, maybe I should do a solution raising on what is the best format or formats. Because, as you said, I think, mythology and storytelling and science fiction, there's so many examples in science fiction of things that, like in Star Trek, the tricorder, where, here's a communication device that's wireless that can do all these different things. And we have them now, so these things do come into reality. But it's kind of like I'm studying all these folks like Daniel Schmachtenberger and Jordan Hall and, what Ken Wilber describes as these tier 2 type thinkers, where they're integrating all of these complex systems that are interrelated but separate, and how we can pull them all together into a coherent sense-making deal. I'm trying to understand it enough so that I can write coherently enough that it comes across. So I think I bounced around a lot there, but I'd be willing to hop on the phone with you separately if you wanted to, since I don't want to waste everyone's time here if they've already heard your story, your what you're trying to accomplish. But I'm happy to do that. So
So I think we could go back to Carrie if you want to stay on the
Yeah,
hot seat.
I just wanted to say something to Yasari and Anne Bentley. One of the guys turned up in the project period, and I read what they were doing, and it was like transmedia storytelling. Now, if you haven't heard about transmedia storytelling, that's taking one story, and as you were just talking about different formats. So say like if you write a book, if you want to have a film of that book, you have to adapt that story to fit the medium. So it's basically the transmedia storytelling is just fitting the story to the different mediums that are out there using, like film, animation, adverts, what have you. So I just wanted to mention that because I went on a course for transmedia storytelling, about 3 years ago because I wasn't too sure what it was. And then all that stuff translates. So say like if you've got a product and that, and you're doing that transmedia, and then the merchandise and all of that, it all links into kind of the seed from the story. So that's what I wanted to say. That, and I think that if you haven't heard of it, maybe go check it out because I think it will help.
No, it makes good sense. Yeah, I think I told you this, Carrie, before, but like there's so much of this kind of systems theory and stuff is really kind of left-brained, logical stuff. And it's really inspiring, but I also write poetry. So, while I've been writing about some of this Game B left-brain stuff, I've also become so inspired that I end up writing poetry, which is arguably very right-brain approaches. And it's funny how I can get an idea out in poetry in an incredibly short amount of words that not everyone may relate with if they're not really trying to understand what it is. It's the same with a longer 20 paragraph essay on what makes Game B tick, or what's wrong with Game A,
Well, I think, to be honest, like me personally, I feel like I'm in the middle between the logic, the data, and the woo and the fluff.
Good place to be.
And I'm somewhere in between. I don't belong in either. So like there's a lot of stuff that goes right over my head, and but I'm interested. I'm curious. I'm like, oh, what's that?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well maybe I need to look at that because I sense something in it. There's something there that I can't articulate what's there, and the same with the fluff and the woo. It's like,
yeah, I get it.
You know what I mean? So as I said, I was saying to Jubilee before, there's a huge chasm that needs bridging. You know what I mean, for people to understand. But as I said, people need to come to things in their own time. You can't kind of foist it on them. You can't preach at them. They've got to come from their own time. But you've got to leave the breadcrumbs for the people to see.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean. And as people start getting sorted and more organised, and then they start looking. You know what I mean? But it's having a place that they can actually come and start, oh, what's that? And then go from there to, because that's, I'm terrible on a Google search for something. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, well, that's how I came across this anyway. I was just listening to Rebel Wisdom podcast and just kind of more interested in like the, sense making stuff. And it took a while for me to even hear about Game B. And when I finally heard about it, I was like, what? Oh, wait, there's people that got together and are trying to rethink this from a fundamental level. I've been doing it out of my head for years, but it seemed like, I was just this semi-lonely voice out there. And then I was like, whoa, this is an entire movement? Sign me up. So anyway.
I've played with a few ideas, and Carrie, pop in if we said you'd be in the hot seat if you wanted to be. So if you actually want to be in the hot seat, it sounds like we're putting Yo in the hot seat. But the idea of storytelling, my favorite genre is dystopia, but I'm trying to create protopia. But then, besides the story of how you get there, which I'm sure is interesting, once you're there, it's like, well, what stories are there to tell? And that's part of almost what breaks it in the real world is we feel like a beautiful world would be so boring. What stories can you tell in that world? And of course not. Every story nowadays, right? Love and adventure and all of it still exists. But what does that weave together and look like in a way that brings the audience along for the journey and the characters and then almost subconsciously gets them the information of Integral or Game B or a beautiful new world that is possible.
Yeah, the story I got all inspired about last night was basically, starts off in the protopia. This like most of the world's challenging jobs were automated. Nature was really protected. People didn't necessarily work for a living. They did what was really passionate to them and followed their own curiosity and passions into creating things that were beneficial to everyone and the world around. But it kind of goes into, the deaths and tragedy that occurred a couple generations before, which was when, the world went through that transformational process, and kind of describes, the painful realities of, the loss of people that went through basically kind of a revolution, not necessarily war, but hadn't gone too far into it yet, but just the kind of what we're stuck in right now, and I do think that, a lot of times instability happens within nature. Like evolution doesn't really occur unless your environment's under threat. That just doesn't happen, and it's the same for humans. Like typically we don't really learn a lesson unless it hurts a little bit, unfortunately. So, in a way, it's like, I think all the people that feel stressed, depressed, anxious, worried about, the world, that just shows that they're really healthy. I mean, because that's how you should be feeling when we are in the situation we're in. So I'm trying to, put a bright spin on the pain that we're currently experiencing. And I really do feel like we are on, might take 2 would be very fast. Might take a decade to 15 years before I think we are elevated at that next level. But that's kind of what my passion is to help promote those voices as well as my own, to show what that next world can be and how we can individually and collectively be viewing the world, to get people excited about it. So anyway.
Shyla, do you want to give an update or your thoughts?
I'm sorry. I just wanted to pop in and say hi. I've kind of been out of it for a while. I guess for my project, my big idea would be to get a meta-currency system developed for humanitarian wealth, and then have an art show or an exhibition where I was able to share that or give it to community that could then practice this game B as just kind of a art experiment and see where it goes. I think it's very organic that way, and we don't have to think through all the possibilities, what can or can't happen. It just gives people more of an opportunity to start doing it. So that's it. I'm still working at making art and thinking through stuff, but really I'm not moving forward right now. I'm just kind of struggling with everything that's going on in the world and how it affects me, and trying to get on some new meds so maybe I can process better. And that's about it. It's really great to see all of you.
It's nice to see you too, Shyla.
Shyla, I've got something for you. Because I know I heard you mention about the currency. I don't know whether you've read a book by David Graeber. It's called Debt, the First 5,000 Years. It's a brilliant book. I thought it'd be dead boring, and I picked it up and I couldn't put it down. And it's an excellent read if you're interested in doing that. Also, Bernard Later, The Future of Money, I remember reading that because after the Second World War, community currencies and all that, they were doing really well. And then they got too successful, and then they got banned, you know what I mean? And also I wanted to connect with you over the art, because part of what I was saying before you jumped in, I want these little craft pubs, which is like an art department mashed up with a tea shop, that people can just come and there'll be a sense of belonging, plus the Phoenix Lighthouse. Well, there's all sorts. That's why I wanted to talk to you, and see if we could maybe come up with ideas, and maybe I could, help you and have chats, do chats. So that was why I was wanting to connect with you. I wasn't wanting to connect with you to talk about the weather. So just so you know that.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm hoping to get a little more together this coming week. I'm dealing with a pharmacy issue or insurance.
Yeah. Well, there's no rush. Just whenever you're ready, just sort of like give us a shout and we can pick something up and talk. Okay.
Sounds perfect. Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. I've been excited for days. It's like, yay!
Yay. Cool.
I have a couple of thoughts if no one else has a burning desire to speak. Carrie, first note on your, I work with a lot of different technologies. Even though I haven't worked with Drupal, I'm constantly having to figure something out. So if you get stuck, feel free to reach out to me. And if you want to schedule some time, I just put a link in the chat. And really for anyone, bentleydavis.com/schedule. Allow you to put something on my calendar if you want.
Well, I would like to actually talk to you because like I'm going to pick up a chat with Adriel when he's ready. When I said there's no rush, but I would like a one-to-one conversation with you, find out more about your projects and all what you're doing, and then see if I can, help. And as I said, once Adriel's ready, I can have it. But as I said, once I've reorientated myself with Drupal and that, and then I can show you what I've got, because I'm telling you, as a content management system platform, Drupal, because it's modular, you get a core module and then you can just build on. It's very powerful and there's loads of stuff. As I said last time, I was on my own and I was like, oh, I love this, I love that, I love that. What does that do? I don't know, but it looks good. You know what I mean? So just having someone to get me to wind my neck in, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I could definitely take an hour or two and help you through.
That'd be brilliant. That's excellent. Cheers.
And then just to mention, Jubilee had mentioned the problem with writing about these kind of future things, that where we have this kind of really well functioning society. They had a big debate in Star Trek Next Generation, just bring Star Trek back, when Gene Roddenberry, the creator, didn't want any conflict between the characters on the Enterprise. Because he kind of pictured that as this, they have reached that state where they communicate well and stuff like that. Of course, they did also have a counselor on board, which I think was great. But they ended up having, just deciding that they were going to have internal conflict between the characters for story purposes, is my understanding. But also the benefit of doing science fiction where aliens exist is that you're constantly reaching new cultures.
Yeah. Are we going to be like Ron Hubbard? Are we going to be the new Ron Hubbard?
Yeah. So it just culture conflict where maybe the cultures might even have pieces of these different psychotechnologies, they're calling them in the Game B and Rebel Wisdom space, I think. And then them conflicting and learning the those ways of communicating better might be an interesting solution for that. And then I don't know, I think no matter how far we get, there will always be kind of an internal conflict. But I guess the thing is that they would then show them, they'd be reminding each other of, okay, now I understand you're frustrated, but here's the tool that we use in these type of situations. Might be, I think I would find that interesting to read.
I mean, I think one of the interesting, I don't know if I quite call it a struggle, but one of the struggles I've had in understanding, the basic framework for Game A, which part of is described as non-hierarchical, is that, that sounds great because, there's obviously so much pushback against the patriarchy, and there's really good critiques of what is wrong with that type of mindset and thinking. Yet at the same time, how do you do it when there clearly are people that know better ways to do things and people that are holding us back from doing that? So, you're kind of describing like, if they're willing to make use of these tools, then we can find a common language with which to, attain new levels of coherence in our systems. But, I mean, it's hard when, there's cultures that are still, arguably third world countries. I mean, they just don't have the complexity, the intercultural connections, the education to be able to picture it. So, we have this different strata levels of understanding going on. So it's part of the reason I think storytelling is so good, is because you can kind of create metaphors for it. But I did struggle a bit in terms of like, well, what would this this new way of this new world look like exactly? Nobody making decisions. How is the collective making a decision? How do you filter the less there's going to be a bunch of voices that never feel heard because they're not providing good solutions to things. So how do you filter those solutions out, the less good solutions out, without making people feel incredibly unheard? So anyway.
Welcome, John.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
I'm
I think
learning.
we're at a point.
My first time here. Is my mic on?
Yep.
Yeah, it is. Go ahead.
Well, thanks for having me. I've been a wallflower for a bit, and a little background on me. I became a student of ontology about, I don't know how many, it might be like 10 years ago. Had a coach that introduced me to spiral dynamics, Ken Wilber. I guess before that, the psychologist I was dating and my wife ended up showing me a book about introverts. So I saw all this knowledge about people like me. Finally felt like, oh, there's people that think like me and have these ideas like me and
You're not alone.
process information like me. So yeah, that felt quite good. So I own a business in Seattle, Washington. I lasted 10 months in the corporate world, built my own business immediately. I can only do what I want to do. I can only do things on my terms. And so I built a business over 20 years, and now I want to go do something with that money. And it feels weird to me being a person that, I build websites, do retail, we own bars, cafes, and I desperately want to give all the money away. Yet I'm reluctant to do so because my wife actually runs the philanthropy program at our office, and I told her, don't just go donate, don't just go write checks to people. We have a huge audience, and let's use our money to leverage. So instead of giving $5,000, $10,000 checks to organizations, she runs events that generate $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 at a time for the same organizations that we would be giving to. And so anyway, I have a thesis in mind, a project I've been sitting on for a long time. I've got a domain I've been sitting on for a long time. And it's funny, I've never really run it by anyone that would actually not just listen to me and say, cool, John. You're like the people that could actually get behind an idea like this. And anyway, my thesis is I look around, I'm in Seattle, and we have a lot of homelessness right now among the problems that most cities have. And I firmly believe there's plenty of money floating around to solve the problem. And whether I'm talking to wealthy friends or not wealthy friends, I said, if you had a good way to map your wealth to help the people that need the wealth, would you do it? And I've never heard a single person say, no, I philosophically oppose to moving my money to people that are less deserving, needy, not my problem. Everyone seems plugged in. And as silly as it may sound, I think the actual problem is there's not a convenient conduit to move the money, and there's a low trust level. If I write a check to somebody, I don't know, I hope they do something good with it. Even Warren Buffett rolls this way. I commit $30 billion to organizations that I believe in. Hey, how can you do that if you're not there? watching it happen, don't you want to be more plugged in? So I realized that this worked for me when I joined. Have you all used Kiva or heard of kiva.org?
Heard of it.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
It's just a micro lending platform.
Yeah.
And you make loans generally to third world countries, usually for small retail businesses, the kinds you've seen on vacations.
Mm-hmm.
They get into education, farming, and things like that. But it covers the full gamut. Anyway, you can loan as little as $25, and eventually, generally, your $25 get paid back, and then you go lend it to somebody else, and then you can opt into a kind of a tip that goes to the organization so that they can run their affairs. And I'll just sit in bed at night with my daughter, and we'll donate money to women in third world countries running businesses, because that's kind of a sector I've chosen. And I'm just stunned at their ability to pay that money back. And I mean, here I am helping people far away. It's kind of fun because you have people trying to take their business to the next level, and they literally need like $200. So it makes you feel really like more powerful and capable than you normally feel in your current circumstance. And we give them money away, and it comes back, and I'm like, this isn't me giving away anything. This is just me giving other people access to my unused capital.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I find the funniest about that website is people can join into groups, so you can affiliate with whatever group. So I individually have loaned this much money, but the group I affiliate with has also moved this much money. The top two donators are the Christians and the atheists.
Interesting.
Are in a battle to be the most charitable, and it's actually really fun to watch because it's not what you would expect to see on a website like that.
Sure.
So anywho, I want to build a piece of technology that works kind of like Kiva. I hate to use the word gamified, but it's a good metaphor. What works about gamification, there's a satisfaction in knowing tactily, I've got my phone, I'm hitting the widgets, I know what I'm doing. If somebody gave me a widget that said, here's people in Seattle that are really desperate right now, here's their faces, here's their story, I would dump all of my money into it.
Hmm.
And I'm like, but that's not happening because I don't know who to trust. I'm scared to go meet these people myself. It's not really my comfort zone. And I know a lot of other people with, collectively billions of dollars of wealth. And I think they're kind of doing the same thing in their own way. So I want to bring this to other people that have high net worth and say, like, do you want to do something like this? I've got a friend that's he's bringing virtual reality to this technology. He wants to build online forums that you literally can't tell you're not sitting next to the person.
Hmm.
But he's also passionate about climate change and other things. And so it's funny, I've been meeting to sit down with this guy and chat with him about this very thing. Then his whole family got strep, and then we had a pandemic, and so everything's on hold.
Right, John, I just want to tell you this, right? 17 years ago, I tried going back to help out because I'd been homeless off and on for about 8.5 years, and nobody got what I was on about because it was all about your circumstances dictate who you meet. So I was trying to gather a network together. There's a book called Winning by Sharing by Leon Benjamin. So if you just type in Winning by Sharing, who is Kelly Santo, there'll be a chapter about me in that book, about how I tried to come from nowhere. Anyway, I fell flat on my face because no one got what I was on about. Anyway, 17 years later, trying to do stuff. I've been working in a Christian Science retreat place, and it's basically a hotel, bed and breakfast for Christian Science to do. And I put in a proposal to stop the place from shutting down. And during the writing of that proposal, I realized I wanted a Phoenix lighthouse. So there'd be these little lighthouses all over the place that people could come and stay. And then on a solution raising with Jubilee that I did, you can go and listen to it. We talk about suicide and now being homeless and for that longer time, and you just want to give up on your life, and it's your life that you've got that you want to give up on. You may not want to die, but you just can't do it anymore. So whilst I was talking to Jubilee, I realised this Phoenix Lighthouse idea was because like when there's people who fall through the cracks in society, right? They fall through the cracks. You go to an organisation that are set up to help, and all these charity organisations are set up to help. You go to them, you say, you don't fit our criteria, we can't help you, but you still need help at the end of the day. So back then, I wanted to help the people who are falling through the cracks. You know what I mean? So my idea was to build these little kind of like little bed and breakfasts. So if people were falling and slipping, rather than wait till they're in the gutter, then they could come and stay, and we'd be a network of people around them to help them get them on the feet, and I'll build them up, and that network would be life. And as I said, I was in children's homes for a few years, and I come out of that. And when you come out of, like, I know some of the kids in the home, they now have no family, nobody. So once they get kicked out of the care system, that's it, they've got nothing. So I wanted to have a place, as I said, like a bed and breakfast. People come stay, doesn't matter where you're at, come and stay, and as I said, and build a network around that, so people can help get them on their feet. So that's what I've been wanting to do. So if you wanted a one-to-one chat, because like that, obviously I can't be everywhere and I've got no money, but if you and your people wanted to go and do that over there, I'd love to come and help you. You know. That's
a really cool idea. I've actually been digging into something that's kind of a similar concept. Have you heard of Oxford Home?
No, I haven't heard of that, but I'll look it up.
The guy, I think he started in the 80s, an ex-alcoholic. He built this framework for addicts.
Right.
And it's really open source, really easy to deploy. There's a central agency that's really lightweight.
Mm-hmm.
But generally what happens is it takes 6 to 9 people to get together and say, we're all addicts and we want to get sober. They go find a landlord willing to rent a house to them.
Mm-hmm.
Rent usually ends up being, rather affordable because of the number of people. They build a charter and they self-manage this house themselves. And you might think, if I grab 6 to 9 addicts and put them in a house together, that's a recipe for some really bad. And it's remarkably successful.
Yeah, well, it depends what stage they're at. If they're not in the stage that they're ready to give up, then putting them in with the others who are ready to give up, that's not gonna work.
I think you're right. And what I suspect makes it work is nothing makes change harder than someone 2 levels ahead of you.
Yeah, like because my thing is, you realise when you're in the gutter, just how hard it is to get out. And as I said, my thing was, like at the time years ago, I was trying to build a network, and I was trying to open up a little drop-in offices because I couldn't get a job, and I was stuck. I was telling you, Sari, and I was stuck in catch-22. How are you supposed to get a job if you've got no experience and that, right? So I was trying to set up a drop-in office, and what we would do is like the micro businesses and people who couldn't afford like big accountancy fees, we would do the bookkeeping and administration stuff while giving the people who were sleeping on people's couches and had nowhere to go, and they would get to know the people who were starting the businesses, because your circumstances dictate who you meet. Now, when I was homeless, all I ever got lumped in was other homeless people. So you got no hope, no job, no sense of belonging, no nothing. And as I said, it took me a long time, and I saw people die around me, and I've been through all sorts of shit. And when I went to the organisations who were in charge of giving out the funding to help people out, none of them have been homeless, so they don't have a clue. And all the funding would be like, oh, well, you've got to make what you're doing fit to what we're giving out. I said, no. It's the other way round. The funding needs to give what's needed, not the other way around. But like they're all up there. Well, I don't want to lose my 30 grand job a year and all of this. And as I said, I didn't get anywhere, and I spent 7 years of my life trying to convince people to join. I wanted 500 people to give me £80. I managed to raise about £8,000, and I did it one at a time because I didn't want to spam them. And there's all these people going, oh, lovely idea, great idea. But they didn't have a clue, and everyone was like, you're ahead of your time. I said, well, that's no good to me now. You know what I mean? They all wanted to be seen to be doing something rather than actually doing it. And that's on. And every time I've gone back to the fund, oh, well, you've got to do this. But no, because that just creates more of the same, because all these organisations, they just roll you out for PR purposes. Oh, look at us, we're doing this. We need the money. Give us your money, you know what I mean? And it just wouldn't work. And as I said, because I got told off at the Social Entrepreneurs Conference in Oxford one time for pitching at Jeff's golf. I got told off by his PA. He's like, get away. You know what I mean? And, you know, there's some amazing people doing stuff in this world, and they don't get a chance because they're not all shiny. They don't have the PR stuff, you know what I mean? And they've actually been there. Sorry, who's that? Okay, so I'll shut up now. So if you're up for a one-to-one, John, I'd love to talk to you and find out more about what you're interested in, because it's not just about the money, it's the people as well. You know what I mean? So, and if you can get stuff, as I said, I can't be everywhere, you know, but I'd love to have a string of these Phoenix lighthouses all over the world that people could just, and then from there, build the communities out from that, you know, but ask what the community wants, and maybe
We love the idea of having people come together and create their own house.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna give Sarian has had his end up for a bit. What would you like to say? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm super excited to, well, one, I live in Seattle myself. I'm actually living in Kingston currently, but I've been in Seattle since 1980. Cool. Went to Bellevue High School, and I've also been a drug addict in the past. I did 5 years of therapy and numerous different types of methods to be clean. I mean, I'm not 100% sober. Sometimes I smoke a little bit of pot. That's, you know, maybe once a month or something. I sometimes don't really enjoy it, so that's why I don't smoke it very much. But clean myself up. I'm actually really connected to a number of people. I've even been asked to be on the board of a, you know, specific modality for treating addiction. I've been surrounded, you know, when you become an addict, you know a bunch of addicts, and many of them don't make it, and many of them make it and actually become very successful in helping others get out of addiction. You know, you weren't here earlier, so I'll just reiterate. I've also been since I've gotten sober, I've been the CEO of a company with, you know, 35 employees, managing $250,000 of sales per month with a board of directors, and kind of reached levels I never thought I would have reached when I was younger. But so anyway, I just wanted to bring that up, that we're local to each other at least, and that I'm familiar with a lot of the minutia of, you know, kind of what I think people need. So, you know, there's a part of me when you say like, oh, give money to the homeless, there's two parts of me. There's one that's like, right on. And then there's the other side that's like, you know, people have to want to change to change. So it, you know, I don't know that giving money to people that are stuck is necessarily helpful, and, you know, but I also see that, you know, addicts are products of the system too. So they do feel unheard and chewed up and hopeless, as Carrie's saying. And, you know, it takes a lot of effort to pull yourself up out of that. And it's great to have support systems around. But, you know, the amount of people I know that have like stuck around to try to help people that just never took off, you know, that happens too. So it's a tricky subject. I like the loan process, you know, I like that thing of, you know, the micro loans or the loans, because
it doesn't seem to be a similar thing.
No. And you have a website.
A lot of, like, I tried out Lending Club, which makes the loans, and I can invest in those loans.
Yeah.
I'm making pretty decent money. Then people start defaulting, and I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of investing in pseudo predatory lending here.
Yeah.
This does not feel like Kiva at all.
Yeah. Well, I think you need to have some type of system where, you know, if people are not paying back their loans, they certainly can't come back for more money. You know, so if they can put up the reason why they want the loan in the first place, you know.
So I have this idea. So if you get this organization of people helping people, well, connecting wealth to people that need wealth, and of course are receptive, because yes, the notion in Seattle is, you know, a lot of the tent dwellers, they like being there, they want to be there, and sounds dubious, but you know, they probably got a culture and they probably feel ostracized, and it is a comfort zone. So everyone seems to be approaching it from kind of an arm's length. One of my challenges to myself with my coaches if I want to know the answer, I should probably just go talk to some people in that situation and get it directly from them. If I said I would get you an apartment, would you take it? If I said I was going to feed you, would you take it? If I asked you to do your part and seek employment, would you do it and just see how they respond? I have no idea how they would respond.
I said people have got to want to be changing. You've got to get to that stage in your life. You can't do this anymore, and that's basically it. Like you can't go and
people say is that you'll just hit a stage and you'll suddenly open for change, and it works.
Mm-hmm.
So we are in the last 5 minutes of the roundtable. I love what is emerging. I wanted to add, I know I'm fairly familiar with microloans. I've been interested in the space since I first heard about Common Eunice, I feel like 2 decades ago. There's something about the Oxford that people who are addicts can get together and say, we are ready to, and we're going to support each other, even if that doesn't look perfect, and get a house together. It also reminds me of the beginning stages, or maybe it was 2.0 micro lending, where people did get together and they were each other's collateral. They were like, we're kind of getting, and so you wouldn't get the next level of loan until you got the previous loan. And having people come together and be like, we don't want to be homeless, right? So we're going to find a house together. And having a way that people who have money can support that and see, because I think there's just more trust there, less risk, right? That money isn't going to be paid back, or that there isn't going to be a positive outcome coming out the other end. And empowering through that process is in and of itself employment. Like it's in and of itself.
It is, you can turn it into that. So that's my point to you. Sorry, what I was trying to get at is, if you build this organization, to me, the most elegant thing to do is you need field workers going out and finding out who needs what, are people doing their part, is this thing working? If you made those very field workers the people that needed the help in the first place, you've built employment into the system.
Yep.
And then you can build on that. You've built like a kernel that can actually grow from its own resources. And I can't think of anything more powerful than employment coming from within, the wealth coming from without, kind of like energy comes into any system.
So we're down to our last 3 minutes. I think there's a lot of passion here about your project, John. I think that this is a perfect project to do a project raising on, to get people together and say, hey, how do we help you crystallize your vision? A project raising was something that we first did months and months ago, where someone would come on board and say, here's what my project is, here's what I want to get out of the hour. And we would just crowdsource that, right? We would just focus on that project for an hour. If that is something you were interested in, I think people are interested in you with that.
I've got to get more ideas, some small. The Oxford home, I was actually motivated to just go buy a house myself and turn it and designate it an Oxford home. And then talk to the organization and say, I know it might be hard finding, especially in Seattle, a home that's a fit, but I'm only making the home available for Oxford home, and see if that's a sustainable business model. I could just, run a real estate business off of that and keep everything fair, control.
I'd love to have a chat with you on a one-to-one on, if you want to contact me via Facebook. That'd be brilliant. Oh, that'd be excellent. Cheers. Then I can show you stuff that's done, and you can go and have a look to see what's what, and then we come back and do solution raisins for you. Okay?
Same here.
Take a time to tell people they will show up, because it sounds like there's a lot of interest, especially.
Right on.
Yep. I've been wanting to build communities for a long time, and a lot of my models had kind of wanted to include people who
this is not the process raising. We're just going to wrap up and go on through. Because I get it. Like, we're all like, yes, how do we help the people? We have a last minute. Would anyone like to give closing statements before or anything? You can do that, Yo, if you would like. Give a.
Oh yeah. Well, just it's nice to hear people, working on projects that are trying to elevate, the rest of us, the rest of the world. And so it just been so exciting to kind of come across Game B. And I've been, it's been my life now for a few weeks. And, that's when I learned of it. And I just got so excited that I've spent all this time. And I've learned of all these different elements from Ken Wilber is a huge influence of mine too, that I learned from a therapist of mine years ago. So anyway, just you know, I'm really inspired to see so many people jumping into this with good hearts and minds. So
Right on. I guess my closing thought would be, I don't know, spiritually, I believe there's only really one thing you can do in this world that actually matters. Most of what we do is a distraction. The only thing you can do that actually matters is how you treat your fellow human. And it's either with compassion or it's with separation. And there's two paths to go. And what happens when we all get along? Well, let's worry about that when we get there. Let's move toward that.
yeah.
Shiloh, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I don't know why it's
Let's mute everyone else. That's just, is that better?
weird. I just want to say I'm also in Washington in Olympia, so that's cool. I'm excited to see where all this goes and later, I guess.
I just want to say I'm so grateful for everyone showing up today. I thought this was a really amazing roundtable, and everyone is welcome back, of course, every week. Thank you to Adriel for dropping down so that John could join. And thank you for, like, this is Carrie's first roundtable. John, first time I've ever seen John's face, Yo's first roundtable, and Shiloh hasn't been back for a while. So thank you, everybody. And we do this every week, and look out for John's project raising in the Game B projects. Goodbye, YouTube and Facebook.
Thanks, everybody.